It seems like Baku has provided yet another disappointing reality check for Mercedes after Hamilton and Russell have finished only at P6 and P8, their worst finishes so far in the season, when all of the top 3 drivers managed to finish the race. Nonetheless, they are not giving up so early in the season, and it seems like they are planning to put in some great effort in the upcoming races, Miami being involved. But will this circuit favor the W14 after it was merciless on the W13 last year? And is the new design basically the Hail Mary play for Mercedes in 2023? After the resurgence in pace in Melbourne, Mercedes have failed to convert yet another dominant performance in Baku. This circuit has proven to be too big of a challenge to be overcome by Russell and Hamilton, with the younger Briton not even making it to Q3 during Friday's qualifying session for Sunday's main event. To top that off, he was slammed for his actions against Verstappen in what seemed to be very close racing. But the fact that Russell wasn't ahead of the Dutchman only goes to show that he wasn't in the right here. But before we continue, I want to thank today's sponsor, PureVPN Services. Let's continue. Nevertheless, that's all in the past, and we can only conclude a couple of things from the previous race that can be implemented in the next one as well. Mercedes will continue with the struggles unless something massive changes. This has been confirmed by Toto Wolff and Hamilton, and what has been said by Wolff has hurt Mercedes fans even further, but we'll get to that later in this video. First, let's discuss some of the main points that the W14 needs to get fixed, as it is top priority for them to have a car that can work wonders if they want to be competitive with the RB19. One thing that has presented a massive issue for Mercedes is the lowered straight line speed, even with an open DRS. They are literally the slowest car on the grid when their DRS is open, and they are managing to get the time needed in other sectors of the track. However, the slow corners have also presented a huge issue to be overcome by the W14, given the fact that the car lacks rear downforce and it's being too pointy ahead, which results in wrong assumptions about when the driver should hit the braking point, and therefore have an optimal corner entrance and exit. Well, before we continue, I want to thank our sponsor for today's video, PureVPN. I was in need of a reliable VPN to watch Formula 1 when I came across their services. However, I must say I am really impressed with their VPN services. I am a big F1 fan, so I generally use their service to get access to movies and videos that are freely available in other countries, but not in the United States. A good example of this is F1 not being freely available in the US. To have access to F1, I connect to an Australian IP and stream Formula 1 on ORF and Service TV. This saves me lots of money while still enjoying F1 content. Even my friends from the UK got hooked onto PureVPN so they can watch the F1 races on F1 TV Pro instead of needing an expensive membership from Sky Sports. A big question my friends had was whether PureVPN is easy to use. Well, I can tell you from personal experience that the PureVPN app for TV, phone, tablet, and computer makes it extremely user-friendly. Even more good news is that PureVPN has many servers all over the world, meaning that you can watch even more geo-locked programs and services in different territories. Worried about PureVPN storing your data? No need to, as PureVPN does not monitor, track, or store what you do online, so you are safe to watch more of the racing guru. They currently give 81% discount, so click on my link in the description for more details. Now let's continue. Baku is a circuit that highlights all of these characteristics, and while it has one of the longest deltas on the calendar with 2.2 kilometers, it's definitely full of slow 90-degree corners that just take a huge toll on the car's balance. This is exactly where Mercedes weren't able to catch up with their rivals, and if you add the straight line speed deficit, then you result in a car that was practically one of the slowest compared to Red Bull, Ferrari, and Aston Martin. If you look at the stats, you can see that from all of the 8 drivers in Red Bull, Ferrari, Aston Martin, and Mercedes, Russell was the slowest one, while Hamilton was third to last in speed. This is definitely not what Mercedes wanted and expected after the Melbourne GP, but will this narrative change for the Silver Arrows in Miami? It seems like the upcoming GP will pose an ever bigger challenge to overcome for Mercedes, because first of all, the team isn't planning on changing a lot on the car for the upcoming race. Imola is where all eyes are set, but does that mean we won't see a competitive car from Mercedes on a track that hurt them a lot in the past? Hamilton himself admitted that this was a track on which they struggled a lot in the past, especially because it has 2 long main straights that will highlight their straight line speed deficit compared to the rest of the grid. While the surface in and of itself and the nature of the track is much more traditional compared to Baku, these two sectors will definitely present a huge headache for Mercedes, as last year we saw Russell and Hamilton going head-to-head in a very close fight for P5, one that Russell was able to claim in his own hands. Furthermore, Hamilton went on to talk about the 2023's Challenger and said that while it has shown some promising signs, it has been far from what he enjoys in an F1 car, as he went on to add, "The car is really hard to drive this year, but every now and then it feels better for me. Today, Baku wasn't perfect, but I had pretty decent pace. It just shows we are on the right path, and I think once we get the upgrades, we'll be in a much better place." Even though Hamilton finished P6, he was able to climb a couple of drivers, including his teammate Russell, and it's worth noting that the safety car was definitely bad luck for his race. Nonetheless, he has mentioned that he is patiently counting the days until Imola, the race from which we are supposed to see a different version of the W14, one that is supposed to up the competitiveness level of the W14, and one that we'll definitely enjoy watching. Wolff has hinted earlier this season that his team will bring upgrades to every race this season, no matter the magnitude of the upgrades itself, which automatically implies that the W14 will see a tad different upgrades in Miami. But this is not what we are waiting for, as everyone hopes that the front-ended car that Mercedes built this year will be definitely changed from Imola onwards. However, Wolff's recent statement has made Mercedes fans angry when it comes to what are the expectations from the team for the newly concepted car. When talking about the W14's upgrade, Wolff went on to add, "The target for the upgrade is Imola, but I need to manage everybody's expectations. We are talking so much about the upgrade, but we are not going to put it down on the track and drive circles around Red Bull. Over 40 racing laps, that's half a second a lap. At least we saw that Red Bull were pushing today, Baku, but half a second is quite a long way to go. We either have to do a better job, all of us together, to catch them up, or change the regulations. And I don't think we should be doing the second. We have to win on merit, and that means being more clever." All in all, it seems like Imola is the target not for just Mercedes, but for every F1 fan out there. We've been given a promise in Melbourne, one that Mercedes wasn't able to capitalize on in Baku. But nonetheless, it was still something that kept the hopes for the team on a high level that we could have a competitive season ahead of us. The last thing that every F1 fan wants right now is to have a boring period of dominance, one that Mercedes used to enjoy from 2014 to 2020. And if there is someone that can prevent this from happening, it's the budget cap penalty that will be imposed on Red Bull further down the 2023 season. Even with the budget cap penalty in mind, Mercedes are still focused on having the right platform for the W14, as Wolff went on to elaborate. If we get the platform right, it's less about adding 10 points of downforce and more about giving the drivers a car that, when they turn the wheel into the corner, they actually know the rear doesn't overtake them. That's the problem. Then we catch up, as we did last year. Red Bull has committed a breach on the budget cap in 2021, and that resulted in them having to spend 10% less time in the aerodynamic facilities in 2023 compared to the second-place team, with this number increasing for every team further down the table. With Mercedes finishing P3, they have around 17% more time to spend in these facilities compared to the Austrian squad. And the fact that they've brought back James Allison only goes to show that they are planning to be competitive in 2023 as well, not throw the season away after the early disappointment. Miami will definitely be a race in which Mercedes can surprise the competition, and the fact Hamilton has kept everyone's spirits at a high level by saying that it wasn't a failure that they had the worst result of the season in Baku so far goes on to show that he is committed to make things work in Mercedes. The team has finally received some good news when it comes to Hamilton's commitment to the Silver Arrows, as he spoke that he doesn't plan on leaving anytime soon, and he would like to continue for a couple of more years until they can bring the team to the right track. With this in mind, what do you think about the upcoming race? Do you think that Mercedes will be competitive in Miami and Imola yet again and pose a serious threat to Red Bull's reign? Or do you think that they should scrap the season and start from scratch for the 2024 campaign? Let us know in the comments below. Before you click on the next video, make sure to click on my PureVPN link in the description.